Alright, good morning. Welcome to this very special movie vlog. It'll be kind of a cross between a movie vlog and a movie marathon. Today I've decided to do a little bit of a mini movie marathon. I just got the Lone Wolf and Cub Criterion Blu-ray in yesterday, and I figured, you know what? I'm just going to watch all 6 of these films in one go. I'm going to take the day off. You know, I've had a crazy couple of months. October I did like 50 videos on my channel, 30 gaming live streams, along, you know, on top of doing all my editing work. And then in November I wrote 55,000 words to finish off my novel. And then I spent about a week formatting the entire 140,000 word novel to print, so that I could have a copy of the first draft just for myself before everything gets changed. So I've been going non-stop. I haven't really had a day off per se, whether it's Monday or Sunday. I'm constantly working on stuff. I just secured 2 new editing jobs for 2017. Things are going great, but I just want to take a day off and just not have to do anything for a day. And what better way to spend a day off than by watching 6 films in a row? I know, I'm crazy, but I just thought, you know, I think a lot of collectors can kind of relate to this. You know, you buy a Blu-ray because you like the look of the film, or you already have seen it and you like it, and it's either nice packaging or it has cool special features. You're looking forward to it, it arrives, cool, awesome, and if you're a YouTuber, you show it off, and then it goes on the shelf and it just sits there for years sometimes. I just thought, right, I'm really excited about this release. I'm glad that it turned up. I'm glad that I didn't have to pay toll on it. I'm glad that it was in good condition, even though it was packaged terribly by Amazon. I'm excited about this Blu-ray, so let's just watch all of the films tomorrow, which is today. So before we get going, it's about 9 o'clock in the morning. I'm going to go up to the shop, get some stuff for dinner. Connie's going out tonight, so I have the entire day and evening and some of the night to myself to do this. It's probably going to take about 9 hours to watch the 6 films in the series, and yeah, as always, when I'm home alone, I'm going to have beef tacos, which you probably think that's all I live off of, because whenever I do a movie vlog or a Friday night ritual, I'm eating beef tacos, but I've cut it back to like once or twice a month now, so it really is only when I make videos that I'm really, you know, eating tacos and ground beef and all that kind of good stuff. So there's that. I'm going to go to the shop now, and then I'll come back and get ready to do this. It is very cold. The weather has gotten considerably terrible over the past couple of weeks, and over the past couple of days it's been snowing like crazy, raining like crazy. It's not too cold actually. About 3 weeks ago it was so cold I thought my face was going to fall off. I think it was like minus 14 or something ridiculous like that. But yeah, off to the shop, getting some stuff for dinner, and very much looking forward to the day's festivities. Got a horse there, eating some snow, having a little chomp and lick on the snow there. Make sure it's not yellow snow. Nope, he's good. All right. Now I know I shouldn't, but it is a little bit of a movie marathon, so I think I'm going to cheat a little today. Maybe get like a pack of cookies, bottle of sugar-free Coke, and you know, it's not every day you sit down to watch 6 films in a row, so I think I'm going to do that. And yeah, it's cold, I can't think properly. I'm just looking forward now to getting home and getting ready to watch these films, and I hope you enjoy joining me for the ride. Let's do this. Alright, it's finally time to do it. I'm really excited about this, the Lone Wolf and Cub series. Cannot wait to dive into this. I've been anticipating watching these films for about 5 years. I kind of talked about it in my Blu-ray update, but just for posterity. When I first watched Seven Samurai in 2011, I became a huge fan of Japanese cinema, bought this book about, you know, Japanese films, and heard about these and read about them and was waiting for a really good Blu-ray release. And it finally came along. So this came out last month. It took 3 weeks to get here, and I thought I was going to get charged the Norwegian kind of toll because it was a little bit over the limit of things you can order from outside the country. But it turns out that Amazon didn't declare the shipping on the front of the parcel, so I didn't get charged, which is fantastic. And as you can see, it's a gorgeous like cardboard digipack sleeved edition. and it was sent in the flimsiest packaging known to man, and yet somehow it still arrived unscathed. So it's a Christmas miracle, and I'm really excited to check these films out. Apparently it's about the Shogun's executioner who leaves to become a wandering assassin with his infant son. I know that in some instances this is called the Baby Cart series as well. I don't know if all the titles in of the films in this collection are, well, they're certainly all not literal Japanese translations, but I'm not sure how accurate they are. But for the purposes of this video, I will go with what Criterion has given us as the titles. We have the booklet here, which gives you information on the films themselves. So obviously we're starting with the first one, which is called Lone Wolf and Cub, Sword of Vengeance. So there's the title page there, which was released in 1972. And yeah, let's just dive into it. It's always great to sit down with the Criterion Blu-ray. You know you're about to watch something pretty special, or if not, something that's, you know, that stands out in some way. I'm not expecting high art from this. I'm not expecting something on the level of a Kurosawa or a Mizoguchi or an Ozu or a Kobayashi. I'm just expecting this to be what it is: 70s Japanese action. And considering it's based on a manga, I'm expecting it to have some kind of comic book style violence, which sounds like a lot of fun to me. So let's get going. I've got a little bit of breakfast here, just a small chicken sandwich. I've got myself a nice, lovely, cold glass of sugar-free Coke, and I'm ready to go. And I hope you're ready to join me on this little odyssey of 6 movies. I think each film in the series, there are 6 of them. Each film varies between like an hour and 20 minutes to an hour and a half, so it should take roughly 9 hours to watch all of them, and longer than that obviously when you take into account breaks, you know, cooking dinner, things like that. So we'll just see what happens, and the sooner I stop blathering on about these films and how I'm about to watch them and actually start watching them, then, you know, this thing will move along. So here we go. Lone Wolf and Cub, Sword of Vengeance. Yeah. It's always cool to see the Criterion logo before you're about to watch a film. Okay, I'm about half an hour into the first film, and I'm not going to be checking in, you know, throughout each of every single one of these films, but just to kind of, as we settle into the beginning here, or I settle into the beginning of this, the stage has been set over this first half an hour. There was a very interesting opening sequence where you get to see the main character of the series, Ito Ogami, this executioner for the Shogun, and it's a very shocking sequence in the beginning where he acts as a second in the act of harakiri or seppuku, where this young lord is being forced to commit suicide, and the Shogun's executioner has to step in with his sword to decapitate the young boy. And that's the opening of the film. And then we see this executioner with his son out, just kind of, you know, wandering the streets with his little son in the baby cart, so to speak. And then we flash back to when he was the executioner and how he got exiled from being the executioner and kind of disbanded and pushed out from the shogun's palace or whatever, and we see why he's now wandering around as a sword for hire. He even has a banner attached to his back saying that his son is for hire as well. So I mean, he's really just like down at the bottom, you know, just trying to find any way to make money and to feed his son. And also we see that his wife gets murdered, and there's this whole plot with all these different clans, which is a little bit confusing right now, but you really see where this is going, and that this is going to be, again, Sword of Vengeance. This is going to be a full-on revenge film. I don't know whether the rest of the series is like that, but the guy who plays Ito Ogami is great so far. I really feel for his plight and how angry he is at his wife being murdered, and it's a great little plot that has unfolded, and I'm really surprised by how this film looks. The cinematography is excellent. I love the way it's shown on screen. I just love all the little details, the editing tricks. We just had the first big fight sequence, which was fantastic, and I love the use of sound or the manipulation of sound and the deletion of sound in dramatic moments where the director will just cut out all sound and it's complete silence. Like this moment where he kicks through this door, and it's a really, you know, dramatic moment because he's going to find something really bad, and all the sound is gone. So you don't hear the door slamming open, you just see it. And you feel it's like when something really bad happens to you in real life, all those other kind of outside sources just seem to not even be a part of anything that you're kind of receiving from your brain. You know, just things like noises or the slamming of a door just become completely irrelevant when you're in that moment of panic and fear in real life. And so that really just jolted me into the moment of this character's reality, that something had happened to his wife. And I thought that was a really, really effective way to convey that moment. But they are using it a lot, the silence thing, dropping out all kind of sound effects. I like how the rain sometimes gets muted down and it feels kind of atmospheric. And then the fight sequence, which took place partly in water, it would cut out the sound of the water and people falling in. So it gives you this kind of weird, kind of surreal feeling to it. But I'm just going to carry on now and finish the first film. Alright, I'm done with Lone Wolf and Cub, Sword of Vengeance. I loved it. I proper loved it. That ending was phenomenal. If you've seen the film, you know what I'm talking about. I thought it was a really, really good film. I'd almost be happy with it as a standalone kind of thing. And yeah, it's just really, really entertaining, really, really fun at times, because the violence is so over the top. At one point I literally cupped my hand over my mouth and went, "Oh my fucking god!" But there's some real moments of just the cinematography and the way that it's done. There's a great scene with the main character. I get confused because the English subtitles will say Ito Ogami, whereas I can hear them saying Ogami Ito, because in Japan they put the surname first and they switch it around. So Ogami Ito, the main character, is in this kind of hot springs bath. And there's another character in there as well, and just like the way the camera kind of pans around the springs and kind of zooms in and close up on each of the characters as they're talking, and then it pans back around again in one shot. Really, really cool. Just nice moments of kind of visual flair, and then just the bright red blood of the people that this guy is killing, and you really get behind him. And it really does. It's one of those films that just, you know, the morality of it doesn't really play into it too much. You know, this is a guy who made a living, you know, killing people. Even though we get a part of the story where he has his family temple, the Ogami Temple, where he prays for the people who he has executed. So you at least get a sense that he has some of humanity in him, and he kind of doesn't treat his job lightly. But once basically he's conspired against and people want to take his post as the executioner for the shogun, and his wife gets murdered, he is left with his son, and there's this great scene where he has this play toy, this ball, and his special samurai sword, and he says to his son, who's one year old, he says, "Right, you can choose what to do now. You know, your mother's gone. You can either join her in the afterlife," meaning he'll kill his own son, "or you can come and come with me and lead the life of, you know, just hell, basically." And he says, "I know you can't even understand what I'm saying right now, but the choice is yours." And the son crawls towards the sword. And he picks up the son in his arms with tears in his eyes and says, "It would have been much easier if you'd chosen to go with your mother." So it's a very dark story, but you really get to root for, I should say, Ogami himself, Ogami Ito, and the guy who plays him I thought was fantastic, and I just love the image of this man, this assassin, wandering around with this baby cart with his son in it, just very calm, collected, and yeah, just a really, really cool character. And the second half of the film, the first half of the film kind of sets up his whole backstory, where he's come from, why he is the way he is, what him and his son are doing, and the second half has him take up a hit basically on these people. This guy realizes that this is the Lone Wolf and Cub assassin. Great scene where he takes out these two guys without even looking. Just the guy who plays Ogami Ito, it just really conveys how much of a badass he really is. Just fantastic. He really puts a lot of physicality into the performance, which really works. And the second half of the film is him going up into this mountain town to kill a few people, but he gets kind of captured, and he sees that this village has been overrun by these really just dastardly, just absolute horrible pricks. And so for like the whole second half of the film, you're just waiting for him to snap and kill all of them. But it's a real slow burn until this incredible fight sequence at the end, which is just really, I think, crowd pleasing, you know. And again, you don't really think about the morality of it too much. It's just is one of those fun action films. But I do like the story, and I do like the seriousness of it and the darkness of it, and I'm really intrigued to see where the rest of the series is going to go. And you know what? You know, all 6 films are spread over 2 discs. So I'm gonna just jump right now into the second film, Lone Wolf and Cub, Baby Car at the River Styx, I believe this one is called. There we go, Baby Car at the River Styx. So yeah, let's just check it out, dive right into it. I want to waste no more time, and yeah, really enjoyed that. And like I said earlier, the use of silence at times where the sound would drop off to kind of exaggerate these dramatic moments is really great. Probably my favorite scene was this moment where he's exiled from the Shogun's palace or whatever, and all these people are going to kill him until he outsmarts them and kind of gets himself in a situation where he has to duel for his freedom, which explains why he's not really on the run. And so he has this duel with this guy in this field, and it's just the ending moment of the duel is just this phenomenal, like, oh my god, like just real great, again, like splash imagery, almost like a comic book, like manga. So I really feel like that this is in the spirit of whatever the original manga was like, or at least to me, the action in this film and the exaggerated nature of some of the characters feels very much like a comic book to me. So in that sense, it feels like it's probably a great translation of the original source material, though I don't know because I've never read it, obviously. But I mean, if you just look at like some of this imagery, which I don't think is from the manga itself, but I mean, it feels very much like that, you know. I just love the setup of the fight sequences, the choreography, the way it's shot, the way that sound plays into it, just brilliant. And again, lots of exaggerated blood spurts and things like that, the sort of thing that Tarantino was a big fan of and used and homaged a lot in the Kill Bill films. So yeah, on with the second film. Oh, one more thing, yeah, just before I forget. The Blu-ray looks great. But a lot of the characters have these wigs, obviously, and there's this one character who's really old, and you can see all the little dots on the kind of the thing that's been pasted onto his mustache, his exaggerated eyebrows, his hairline. You can see all of the stitching of the wig. Even on the main character at times, you can see these little circular kind of rivets of whatever they use to apply the wig. And it really shows, and it's kind of one of those kind of catch-22 kind of things. It's like, wow, I get to see this film in so much detail. Wow, I get to see this film in so much detail, and it even goes to Seven Samurai, you know, for me, the greatest film ever made. On the Blu-ray, it's so clear. You can see the ridges of the skull caps that a lot of the actors were using. It is what it is with some of these films where you have a lot of the you know, the shaved head style of the period Japanese films. I forget what they're called. I'm not an expert, but you know, the films set in these times, with the Shogun times, the samurai times, the Ronin times, a lot of characters will have these shaved heads with kind of like the monk style and then the top knots and things. So in this case, you know, I'm sure this wasn't like a huge budget film. You can kind of see some of the seams of the makeup and stuff, but it doesn't really take away too much from it. And yeah, on with the second film. Alright, the less I do these little kind of check-ins, the more chance I'll get of actually finishing this today, but I just had to check in on this. 15 minutes into the second film, Baby Car at the River Styx. The first opening scene is just this like brutal kind of action scene that lets us know that the head of the clan that got Ogami Itto exiled from the shogunate executioner position, that they're still after him. You know, even though he won the duel in the first film that meant that they wouldn't go after him again, he got a message at the beginning of the second film that wherever you go, they will come after you. So I love that it ties in and it feels like a continuation, and it's not just, you know, Ogami and his son going off on a series of adventures. It's still linked within that kind of origin story from the first film. And now we're introduced to this group of these swordswomen and there's this woman who kind of has all of these women lined up, and they're her sword mistresses, and there's a plot going on. But there was this amazing scene where this ninja comes in, this man, and she's like, "Why don't you try leaving this room right now?" And he's like, "I'm a ninja. It would take but one leap." And she's like, "Well, let's see it then." So he flips around, he tries to jump out, and these women, they just absolutely annihilate him. They're cutting pieces of his face off. It's absolutely unbelievable. His fingers are flying on the floor, his arms getting lopped off, they're slashing off his feet. Like, pieces of his face are falling to the floor. It's unbelievable. I love the overly stylized violence of this. It's so entertaining for some reason. And again, it just feels very comic book like, you know, just like the crash zooms in on this woman's face as she's getting, like, you know, offended that her women won't be enough to kind of take down Ogami Ito, and just, yeah, I'm really loving the style of these films so far. And that was just, I mean, the first 15 minutes, it's already delivered on the action quotient. Like, I just got no words. The first 15 minutes have been great. I can't wait to continue, so I'm just going to continue, and I'll speak to you in a second. Alright, I'm done with Lone Wolf and Cub Baby Car at the River Styx. Holy moly. Holy moly. Wow. I fucking loved this film. I can't see any of the other films topping this one for me. I absolutely adored it. Like I said, the first 15 minutes were crazy. It just got crazier from there. It got absolutely batshit mental. The fight scenes in this, the violence, the choreography, the cinematography, the editing. I just loved the overly stylized vision that has been brought to life in these films. And I think in this second film, more than the first, it was just such a wonder to behold. I had another oh my fucking god moment towards the end where I couldn't believe what I was seeing on screen. I was applauding. I literally just clapped at the end because I just thought it was so much fun. Some fantastic scenes. Like, there's so many great moments I want to talk about. I don't want to spoil those moments for you either. Daigoro, the son, the 3-year-old boy, the son of Ogami Ito in the film, who's played brilliantly by the young kid, by the way. But he had a really great kind of, like, again, crowd pleasing moment in the film, which I loved. I just loved that. I loved it. I really loved it, and the main bulk of it is kind of surrounding these 3 deadly brothers who Ogami Ito has been hired to go and assassinate, and they've got like their special weapons, and one of them's got like a Wolverine claw, and so they've been built up as these kind of like unstoppable, you know, just fighting machines, and of course he has to go up against them. I liked how Ogami Ito actually took a bit of a beating in this film. At one point he's kind of out of action for a while because he's been injured, and I like that because in the first film he's literally like untouchable, which is fine and fun, but I liked how he took some hits in this one. And there's a beautiful scene where him and his son, Daigoro, they stop in this shed next to this river, and he's out of action, he's out of commission, he's done for, and he's, you know, just unconscious, and his son wanders down to the riverside and begins cupping like a little palm of water to go take to his dad. And when he runs back up the hill again, it all seeps through his fingers, and he doesn't understand. So he goes back down again. He cups the water. He goes back up, and it's just slipping out of his fingers. He doesn't know what to do. So he goes back down to the river for the 3rd time, and he drinks some of the water, and he runs all the way back up the hill, all the way back to the shed, and then he spits the water into his father's mouth. And I thought it was such a touching moment for a son to kind of do this for his father. It was just, yeah. And there's lots of just the cinematography. There's a sequence set in the desert on these sand dunes that's just so atmospheric, and the way the sand was moving across the floor, and there's just some stunning stuff in this film. And I loved it. I just loved it, and I like how the story continues, but we have kind of and almost like in an episodic fashion, we have a new series of characters for him to fight and overcome, and I really hope that this 6-movie series tells an overarching story. I hope it just doesn't end, because, you know, as entertaining as they are, I would really love it to kind of come full circle with a nice story wrapped up, and I have a feeling it won't end up panning out that way. because I'm really invested in the characters now. Anyway, I'm going to jump on right on with the third film, Lone Wolf and Cub, Baby Cart to Hades. And one thing I didn't talk about was, and I'm going all in depth with this, I guess. I wanted this to be a fairly quick video, but it's already going to be a lot longer than that. So I may as well go into it. I really like how once Ito decided in the first film that he was going to take his son and leave the Shogun's palace and become this wandering assassin, that he kind of announces to them that he is no longer a normal human being. And seeing as his son picked the sword and not the toy, his son has chosen that life too, and they're no longer normal human beings. They have taken the devil's path and all this kind of stuff, and he doesn't really consider himself to be, a human. And it's interesting because I've sat through almost 3 hours of this character now, Ogami Ito, and he hasn't smiled once. It's a completely stoic performance, and in fact he hasn't really shown any signs of pain. I mean, it's a completely deadpan performance, but it really works, and he has such a captivating physical charisma and presence, not unlike Toshiro Mifune, who I could see easily kind of stepping into this role. But I think the actor who plays Ogami Ito in this film is phenomenal. The first film, he really showed his kind of his devastation, his wife being murdered, and the future that him and his son were about to take on. But there's a raw power to his performance. One more thing actually about the film, which was one of my many favorite moments, was a scene where this character gets killed, and his neck gets sliced open. And you see the neck get sliced open, and then it's just this quiet, and you hear this low hissing. And then you hear his inner monologue, or maybe he's saying out loud, I don't know, and he's saying how my neck has been cut, and the blood that is spewing out of my neck, it's like the sound of a cold winter, like it's a very poetic thing. And he said, my whole life I've dreamt of killing someone with such a fine cut to make such a sweet song, and now it's my own neck. What cruel irony. And then he dies, and it's just such an over-the-top moment that would be laughed at in most films, but within the framework of the tone and style of this film, it was just such a what's the word? Like, when you feel like you've stopped breathing because you're so captivated by what's going on screen. And the first two films have had quite a few moments like that. So, again, these films aren't high art, but I mean, I'm just falling completely in love with them. Almost to the point now where I'm kind of worried that the next four films are not going to live up to the high expectations I have set by the first two films. Anyway, on we go. On we go with Baby Cart to Hades, the third film in the series. And seeing as I did it for the other two films, here is the title page there, Baby Cart to Hades, and this was also released in 1972. So these first three films were all released within the same year, which is interesting. Anyway, on we go. Alright, I'm done with the third film in the series, Lone Wolf and Cub, Baby Cart to Hades, which certainly has some interesting connotations to hell, for sure, and it was an interesting one. I didn't love it as much as the second one, but I did really enjoy it, and it feels very much like just serial, episodic kind of, let's follow Ogami and Daigoro on another adventure, Lone Wolf and Cub. And I don't think I mentioned yet that Ogami Ito actually refers to himself as the assassin Lone Wolf and Cub. Very much, father and son killing team in a way. And I think in this film, more than the first two, you get to see how his 3-year-old son Daigoro really becomes an accomplice to the things that he's doing and kind of helping him to kill people, and maybe in other cases actually killing people. I don't know. Anyway, I like the plot. There's a lot of plot in all these films with all these different clans and stuff. It's impossible to keep up with everything, but you kind of get the gist of where it's going. At no point do I feel that confused. And usually the over-threading kind of plot line will be pretty apparent as it goes along. There's just a lot of clan names that I will not recognize when they keep coming up. Some of them I do, some of them I don't. And I'm not sure now because it doesn't seem to be continuing the plot thread of this clan. I think it is kind of that he's still on the run, him and his son, from the original clan that he was disbanded from in the first film. Anyway, The violence just continues to roll on. There's a lot of great fight scenes and action scenes. What I really admire about the series at this point, 3 films in, is how inventive the direction is for the fight scenes, the choreography is for the fight scenes, and how they keep finding new ways to make it interesting, exciting, grotesque, you know, entertaining. And yeah, so I really enjoyed this entry. There's some really cool bits and pieces, but I definitely I think that the second film was the one that's just going to be hard to top for me. So what I'm going to do now, because I've actually been snacking on some stuff, I picked this up from the shop, which is just like a complete blast from the past. If anyone has had these before or recognizes them, please do comment down below. Cartoonies. Did anyone have those as a kid? If you're around my age in the UK, I used to love these when I was a kid. Used to absolutely love them. They're like these kind of biscuity kind of treats that have treats, like they're cat food or something. But you know, the biscuity kind of sweets with chocolate inside. Hard to explain really, but I love these, and I had to grab this. And I've had 2 bags already, and I'm feeling terrible about it. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to do a quick workout, which I had planned not to do for time, but I really just, I'm going to feel too bad, so I'm going to do a quick workout, shower, cook my dinner, and then come back for the 4th film, which will be Baby Cart in Peril, which was also released in 1972, so holy shit, I thought it was only the first 3 films. I don't know how they made 4 films in 1 year and released it in the same year. I can't wait to dive into the production history of these films, check out all the special features, the interviews and things like that, because safe to say I'm becoming a huge fan of these films today. And yeah, so I'm just going to stop blabbering on. Really enjoyed the 3rd film, very good, and now I will get my other stuff done. And I think the next 3 films are 80 minutes, 90 minutes, and then 83 minutes. So about another 4 hours and 10 minutes of film. So I should have enough time to finish it. But I will have to go straight to bed as soon as it's finished. Although I'll probably talk to the camera before that as well. So yeah, it's going to be a really tight squeeze to fit everything in. But I'm going to do it. I really want to do the next 3 films. And why couldn't I have just picked a trilogy? I'd be done by now. Alright, okay. Enough blabbering. Like I already said about 2 minutes ago. I'll see you in the next clip. Alright, so working out, cooking dinner took about an hour and 15 minutes, so I'm a little bit behind. I'm just going to dive right in with, well, not really, because I want to mention a few more things about the 3rd film. I liked how in the 3rd film things were a little bit different. I mean, once again, you know, Ogami Ito, he got another, you know, order to assassinate someone, much like the 1st film, the 2nd film. But the person he went to assassinate then wanted him to assassinate someone else. There was a nice twist to it. There was this character who was introduced in the beginning who's questioning what it means to be a true samurai. I liked his storyline and where it ended up going at the end of the film. Huge battle sequence at the end, which really takes it a little bit over the, well, a little bit over the top. What the hell am I talking about? The whole series is over the top. But I mean, it takes the over the topness that has been built up from the 1st film to a whole other level at the end of the 3rd film, I thought, and I loved it. I indulgently, I loved it. And I also loved how the child was used, Daigoro. Lots of close-ups on his face, you know, and just showing his part in all of this. There's just a quiet contemplative nature to this father-son relationship that I really love how it plays out. He's just there for the ride, really, but there's something more to it, and it's just, I like how it's so subtle and isn't really touched on too much. It isn't really you know, the whole father-son relationship isn't beleaguered too much. It's just, it is what it is, and you can kind of just read into it what you want, because it's such a quiet relationship. They barely speak to each other. The kid in the first 3 films has probably had about 10 lines of dialogue, so I just love the way that plays out. Right, on with the 4th film, which is Lone Wolf and Cub, Baby Cart in Peril. So here's some tortillas, the white ones I was talking about earlier. Got a nice glass of Coke there. Got everything ready. The vegetables, the beef. And here's the opening shot of the 4th Lone Wolf and Cub movie. Right out of the gate, and I'm really risking getting my video flagged here. Boom! There we go. That is the opening shot of Lone Wolf and Cub, Baby Cart in Peril. I guess I could just explain this as, oh, this is an aerial view of a mountain, yeah. Or it's just a big old nipple opening the film. I just thought that was interesting. It's going to be a fun one to watch while I'm eating. Here we go. Great opening to the film. It really sets up what this one's going to be about, and I like the recurring theme of what Ito keeps requesting. He keeps requesting the same amount of money for assassinations. 500 Ryu. I'm not sure if that's how you pronounce it, but what he always requests 500. He says no matter how many people, it's 500, and so you'll always get a moment in each of these films where someone says, "Can you please kill this person?" and he'll just say 500 Ryu for an assassination, and that's how this film opens, and then it's like boom, Lone Wolf and Cub. I really like it just kicks it right off in this film, so you know exactly where this one's going, and this credit sequence is actually showing clips from the first 3 films, which is interesting. Anyway, I'll probably keep saying on with the film, but it's what can I say? It's difficult when I'm vlogging like this, because for me it will be later on. Here we go, let's continue, but for you it's instantaneous, so sometimes I don't know what to say, so I'm just going to keep on watching and I'll see you in a second. So there's this character who just turned up and he had this long beard and this long hair, and I thought, oh wow, that's clearly the actor's actual beard because it looks real, and I was just like, wow, it's surprising to see a real beard for once. And then we went to close-up and you could see all the stitching and it was just like, oh my god. The hairlines, everything, they're really showing this. I'm going to have to rewind the film now because I'm missing bits of it. But yeah, I just had to comment that it wasn't just, secluded to the first film. Throughout the entire series, you're seeing all the beard lines, all the patches of the eyebrows and stuff. But it is what it is. And it kind of fits the charm of these films as well. Alright, I'm done with the 4th film, Lone Wolf and Cub, Baby Cart in Peril. All the titles are so similar, I have to keep checking. Loved it. Really, really cool. The films feel different enough that I'm enjoying seeing different stories and stuff with the same characters, but they still feel fairly similar. And like I've been saying, episodic. There is kind of a callback. Well, not a callback, but there is a character who was pretty key to the first film. This kind of big bad guy who kind of was talked about in the 2nd and 3rd films but wasn't really shown again, comes back in the 4th film, and we kind of get a resolution of his part of the story, I think, but he was played by a different actor, and I'm thinking, really? Like, they filmed all 4 of these films in the same year and they couldn't get the same actor to play the same character. Anyway, there's a cool couple of stories that were introduced here, 2 characters in particular. I like their backstories, and that's kind of what this series does. It'll introduce a new character, you'll get this extensive backstory on them, and sometimes they'll just get killed instantly, or it will continue on, and you're always on your toes with this series in terms of the characters and what's going to happen with them, where their fate is going to lie, and I really enjoyed this particular entry into the series. So I think that rank-wise right now I'd probably go 2, 1, 4, 3, something like that probably. Some really cool action scenes as usual. And just again, inventive stuff, things that surprise you. There's a fantastic scene in this Buddhist temple that just blew my mind when it first started. I was like, oh my god, and again, the violence is just, it's kind of wonderful to behold, and I really like the character whose breast we see in the opening shot of the film, Yukio. She was a really cool character, and I liked her backstory and where that all went. One thing I should say is that I don't want to sound flippant or insensitive here, but this series is very rapey. A lot of rape in this series, which is probably the only thing that I can say that I don't like, just because it's uncomfortable to watch. There's pretty much a major rape scene in every film, and it doesn't get easier to watch those kinds of scenes. They're done very aggressively, and yeah, it's hard to watch. But I will say that more often than not, the rapists in question will get their comeuppance big time in the film. And in this one, the 4th one, it was a really satisfying comeuppance, I have to say. But women play a very interesting role in these films because they're there to be raped and then to be avenged on behalf of, but they're also there to kick ass, and they're also there to get killed as well. I mean, it's equality when it comes to the violence in the film, because the women give as good as the men do, but they also take as good as the men do too. You will see women get sword through the throat but you'll also see women, you know, killing men, all sorts of stuff. So I really like that. It's just, you know, there's no kind of, oh, we can't have women doing this in the films. It's all up for grabs, and I really like that because there's interesting female characters, there's interesting male characters, and that's pretty cool. Anyway, on with the fifth film. We're going to roll on with Lone Wolf and Cub, Baby Cart in the Land of Demons. And another thing I'll say is that there's a couple of things that were introduced in this fourth film that felt a little bit more pushing forward into almost kind of fantasy kind of realm. Not quite fantasy, I shouldn't say that, but there's a scene where a character asks another character, can you make your face look like this guy? And he goes, oh yeah, and he pulls out this rubber mask and just puts it on his face, and then suddenly he looks exactly like the guy. And it's a little bit science fiction for me, but then again, the over-the-top nature of this series, I shouldn't really hold that against it in any way. But anyway, to crack on with the fifth film, I'm intrigued to see where this series ends, how it ties everything together. If it does tie any of it together, I don't know. But this one almost felt like a nice kind of ending. But there's a character at the end who was kind of hinting that he would come back to give Ogami Ito another run for his money, and I looked at the credit listing and he doesn't appear to be in the fifth or sixth film, which is going to be really disappointing if he doesn't turn up and that part of the plot isn't resolved, because they gave his character quite a bit of backstory, which is pretty pivotal, and I think it'd be a shame if he doesn't come back in some way. And I've just noticed, I was talking about the old the hairline on the, you know, the makeup, the beard, you can see all the hair and everything, and it's right there in one of the worst kind of examples of it, right on the title screen, the menu screen. I'll show it to you now. So if we just zoom in there, I don't know if you'll be able to see it on camera, this guy here, you can just see that it looks like a cross stitch kind of thing, and that's all over the film, all across the hairlines of pretty much every single actor, including the main actor. You can even see it on his sideburns and everything, and it's just funny to notice that stuff. And here we go, the fifth film, Baby Cart in the Land of the Demons. And the baby cart itself is a really cool kind of character unto itself. I'll talk about that later on, I suppose, but yeah, I can see why most of these films are called Baby Cart and something, because the baby cart does play a massive role in a lot of the key moments of the whole series so far. Anyway, on I go with the fifth film. Alright, it is almost 10:30. Can't believe how long I've been watching these films. Just finished the fifth one. Lone Wolf and Cub, Baby Cart in the Land of Demons. Wasn't really many demons in the film, but apparently there are in the next one. Really enjoyed it. Yeah, I feel like 3, 4, and 5 are kind of around the same kind of area in terms of enjoyment and how good they were and stuff. It's kind of hard to separate them, in fact, in a lot of ways. You know, the first one's the original, the origin story. The second one I feel like is still the best. Like I said, I feel like that's where it was probably going to peak for me. 3, 4, and 5, you know, the assorted adventures of, I suppose all 5 of them so far have been the assorted adventures of Ogami Ito and Daigoro, but this one had a very interesting plot with a lot of names and a lot of clans. It was almost impossible to keep up with, but the basic story was kind of fairly simple to follow, and I like how Ito got more involved in kind of the assassinations, and there was a cool little kind of first act where he was faced with 5 people and kind of 5 tests before they would kind of fully hire him for an assassination, and how they basically were willing to be killed by him to hire him to be their assassin. And a lot of that runs through the entire series, where you have this idea of offering up your life as this kind of honorable thing in Japan, like you know, this, yes, you know, it's did he die well, you know, all sorts of things like that crop up throughout the series. Like there's a father whose daughter gets killed, and his main concern is, did she die well? Did she have a noble death? Yeah, the action was great in this one again, and probably my favorite part was this weird interlude in the middle where we meet this woman who kind of goes around towns pickpocketing people. She has a bit of a racket going on, and there's these guys looking for her, and she ends up getting almost caught with a wallet, so she's running around and she bumps into Daigoro, who's just wandering around the streets on his own, little 3-year-old, and she gives him the wallet and says, promise not to tell anyone. and so she runs off. They catch the kid, and they're going to flog him in public, and unless she comes forward. And so she comes forward and says, okay, it's me. But then the kid refuses to accept that it was her, and the kid just takes the floggings, and it's probably his most dramatic moment in the whole series. The kid, he actually gets this big kind of centerpiece scene, and while it just felt dropped right in the middle of the film, it was probably my favorite scene, I think. But yeah, this was kind of the end of an interesting run. The first 4 films, I think, came out in 1972. This one came out in 1973, and then the 6th film came out in 1974. And the first 3 films were directed by the same guy. He didn't do the 4th one. He came back for this one, the 5th one, and he didn't do the 6th one. And also, the first 5 films were all written by the guy who wrote the original manga, Lone Wolf and Cub, but he did not return for the 6th film either. So this 6th film is almost like this weird kind of unofficial kind of final installment, where apparently Ogami Ito and Daigoro are fighting zombies or something weird like that. So I was saying was it the 4th one or the 5th one? I don't know, they're bleeding over, but one of them I was saying that it's getting almost a bit into kind of fantasy realm. Apparently the 6th film goes all the way in there, and it takes a real surrealist turn to end the series. So basically, it seems like my concerns at the very beginning, that this wasn't really going to tell a 6-part story that kind of overarcs one kind of big theme. It's mainly just 6 episodic kind of adventures of these 2 characters, which is totally fine. I would have preferred like a complete story that tied everything up, but I'm just gonna pop in it's already on all 3 are on the last disc, so I'm just gonna click on the final film and watch it, which is Lone Wolf and Cub, White Heaven in Hell. Let's finish this thing out. I'm getting tired now, both physically, I'm getting a little bit sleepy, but also I think a little bit mentally, because these films are, for all intents and purposes, they're action films, and they do have their moments of drama and stuff, but a lot of the times it's just plot, just to drive reasons for them to get into these big fight scenes. So watching 9 hours of action movies is certainly a bit of a drainer. I probably wouldn't recommend it, but it's been fun, and hopefully I'll keep my eyes open for the next hour and 20 minutes. So here we go with the final film. I think I might have forgotten to do it, but here we go, just for the sake of it. There is the title page in the booklet, White Heaven and Hell, and it's opening on a very snowy landscape, which is something we haven't seen yet so far, so this should be fun. Just in case I forget, one of my favourite things about all of these films are the moments where Ito will just randomly turn around and start like chopping up stuff, or he'll start throwing knives into walls, and suddenly these assassins will appear wherever they've been hiding, and it's always done really in a fun, inventive way, in different ways every time, and it always gives you that feeling that him and Daigoro are always, people are always trying to kill them, and he's always got it sussed out, and he always knows what's going on, and it's always a fun reveal when he does it. Like one, for example, is he suddenly turns around and cuts down 3 trees around him, and you're like, huh? And the trees start to fall, and then these guys fall from the trees, and he starts cutting them up, so things like that. And they play around with the environment and all that kind of stuff, so I just wanted to throw that out there, because there was another one of those scenes just then, and it was awesome. Okay, it's like a couple of minutes away from midnight, and I'm finished, I'm done. Just watched the last minute of Lone Wolf and Cub, White Heaven in Hell. Probably my least favourite, I think, and it didn't quite take the crazy turn that it was kind of promising in the booklet, but definitely there's a plot line where 3 clan members are resurrected from the dead, and they become these weird things that can burrow underground and stuff, and their hands start reaching out of the mud, and it took quite a bit of a weird fantasy turn. But aside from that, yeah, it just, I felt like it didn't really need it. Not that, again, this is a series of films based completely in reality, when you got all this bright red blood just, cascading out of people's bodies, but I felt like there was a little bit of weight to you know, the idea that it could be real, or, you know, just kind of imagining that it was this guy who was so amazing at fighting and knowing where people are and stuff and being aware of his surroundings. But when you put it into kind of this kind of fantastical setting where people get resurrected from the dead, it gets, you know, and there's nothing wrong with that, you know. I mean, look at a film like A Chinese Ghost Story. It's amazing, but, you know, and it fits within its thing. But, you know, the first few films in this series really feel like they could be possible, and so it's a bit more entertaining to indulge yourself in all that violence and action, whereas when you start having people kind of creating faces and, you know, like duplicating someone else, and then, you know, this weird stuff. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Overall, it was enjoyable. Crazy sequence at the end on this snowy mountain top, which apparently took like a month and a half to film. And yeah, it kind of ends on an inconclusive note. You have the kind of the big bad guy who was, you know, there in the first film, came back around the fourth film, fifth film, sixth film. I think he was played by a different actor in every single film. And yeah, this very much ends on a, you know, and they keep on going. You know, spoilers. I mean, there's no big finale in terms of wrapping everything up. I don't know what the story is, whether they were going to make more. You know, I mean, the original director and the original writer of the manga, they both declined to take part in this sixth film. So I don't know whether it was creatively, you know, it just kind of died, if they had more plans or whatever. It certainly didn't feel like this was made to be the last film, but it was. So yeah, I think that it lived on. There was some failed TV kind of series they tried to get off the ground, and there's been an American remake in the works for a long time, which, don't do that, don't do that. It shouldn't be touched, I don't think. Anyway, what I think I'm going to do, screw it, I'm going to watch the special features tomorrow, and talk about those as well. Screw it. I mean, it feels like this video's gone on for so long. I may as well just go all out and go the extra mile. I might even watch Shogun Assassin tomorrow, which is the American re-edit and redub. So I'm really intrigued to see it now. And hey, I've just watched 8.5 hours of this in one go, so I think I can manage a couple more hours tomorrow and just make this a real complete marathon of this entire Blu-ray set, which I want to do more of. Just like watch the film, watch all the special features, make a kind of a big video about it. So yeah, I hope you're enjoying this so far. I'm going to roll over to tomorrow, and I couldn't be more excited to be going to sleep right now. I wasn't falling asleep, but I definitely was looking forward to bed that last hour or so of this film. But yeah, probably my least favorite, but still a very enjoyable action film. I do feel like towards the last couple of films, you know, Ogami Eto and Daigoro, the two main characters, they started to feel more just like vessels of kind of supplying this action, and I felt like the story got away from the two main characters a little bit towards the last couple of films in the series, whereas in the first two, even the third film, I was really invested in their story and their relationship as well. But yeah, overall I loved the series so much. I didn't expect to enjoy it as much as I did. And definitely I think the second one is my favorite of the bunch. But yeah, awesome films. I really enjoyed them, and pretty much what I was expecting, but I enjoyed them more than I was expecting. So yeah, take a little break now, and then I'll come back tomorrow and finish this off by looking through all the bonus features. So I'll see you there. Alright, it is the morning after the night before, and I'm going to delve into the third disc of the Lone Wolf and Cub Criterion Blu-ray and check out the special features. So let's pop the third disc in and get cracking with this. Okay, so the first special feature I'm going to watch is the longest piece. It's called Lame Dune Père Lame Dune Sabre. That's probably the worst butchering of the French language you could possibly ever find on YouTube, so you're welcome for that. It is a 2005 documentary from France, that describes the making of the Lone Wolf and Cub film series. So let's check it out. I think that it's in standard definition, but I'm interested to hear some behind the scenes stuff on the making of all these films. I mean, they've been playing on my mind ever since I went to bed, ever since I woke up. Last night, yesterday was intense, watching 6 films in one go, but I'm intrigued now to get some more background information on them. So I'm going to check this out and come back with my thoughts afterwards. Alright, done with the documentary. It was about 50 odd minutes and was a really interesting look into lots of different aspects of the production of the 6 films. It wasn't too focused. It wasn't like, okay, let's start from the beginning and go through each of the 6 films. It was very scattershot and all over the place, but a lot of interesting stories, a lot of interesting participants. A lot of the key people involved in the series were no longer alive when this documentary was made in 2005, over 10 years ago. The director of the four of the 6 films, is it Kenji Misumi? I'm going to look to the Kenji Misumi. Yeah, he passed away in his early 50s. The star of the series, Tomosabaru Wakayama. He passed away before this documentary was made, and I believe that the kid who plays Daigoro, I tried to look him up on the internet last night, and I tell you what, the information is scant, and there's some rumor that he got arrested for gun smuggling in the 2000s at some point. So yeah, I was wondering to myself, well, surely they must have tracked down the kid and interviewed him for the Criterion release, but there was no such thing, and I guess I don't know, maybe he went down a path of I don't know. I really don't know. I don't want to say anything because the rumors might not be true. But there's certainly no real information about this kid who played Daigoro in the 6 films, and also the producer of all of these films. Let me see, what was his name? There's a lot of names to kind of remember, so I didn't really. Yeah, Shintaro Katsu. And the production company was Katsu Productions or something like that, and Shintaro Katsu played Zatoichi in that series, which Criterion have also released, and it seems to be kind of a similar kind of Chambara kind of style of films, the samurai sword play films. And Katsu was the brother of Wakayama, so you have these 2 kind of series, Lone Wolf and Cub, Zatoichi, about these 2 kind of swordsmen, and they were both played by brothers, and Katsu produced these films. Anyway, it seems from the interviews that Wakayama, who plays Ogami Ito, Wakayama was very involved in the entire series, almost to the point of being a producer, and I think on some films he was credited as a producer, or at least an executive producer. Because I mean, he really lobbied to get the role of Ogami Ito, and I'm not going to go into all the stories for anyone who's going to watch these special features, but the story goes that he kind of went to visit the writer of the original manga and said, I'm going to play Lone Wolf and Cub, and here's why, and he did a somersault and said, look, I'm fat but I can do that, and I'm going to play this role. And he was an accomplished swordsman. He knew how to, I mean, he had like 4th Dan, black belt, things like that. So he had this martial arts training. He could do these flips, and that's something I wanted to touch on. Was that I loved how, you had this great performance from Wakayama as Ogami Ito, from just the raw kind of energy of his physical performance, but also when he would flip around and stuff, you could see very clearly that it is him doing this twisting flip over the camera. And obviously they must use a trampoline or something, but I loved how in all these stunts he's flipping around, rolling down hills and things like that, flipping around on the floor, and you can tell that it is him and it is not a stuntman. And so it just sells to you even more how badass this character is. And yeah, and like even little points like in the 4th film, there's a little scene where Daigoro, the 3-year-old son, is kind of faced with this bad guy, and the bad guy's like, I'm going to kill you, I'm going to kill you with this sword. And Daigoro just holds up a stick like that, as if like, I'll fight you, And the director of that film, the 4th one, said, I don't like this scene, can we cut it out? And Wakayama was like, no, this is key to the original manga, we have to keep this in. So I mean, he would be very insistent on things, which I find really cool. So interviewed for this documentary were various kind of assistant editors, cinematographers, the director of the 4th film, Baby Car in Peril, I really enjoyed hearing his thoughts on the film and how he kind of seek to make the fourth part of the series and things like that, and how his taste differed from the way that Kenji Misumi had directed the first three films. He didn't want as much blood and things like that. We get brief words from the director of the sixth film. They talk a lot about the challenges of filming on the snowy mountaintop in the sixth film, and the difficulties that brought to it. And I really liked hearing from the biographer of Kenji Misumi, who obviously knows a lot about him and had a lot to say about the director. And yeah, overall, and also the writer of the manga was interviewed too, and I really liked his contributions to it as well, and how he viewed the films, things like that. So yeah, it was a really good little documentary. Obviously it's a French produced documentary, so I'm assuming that the bottom of the screen was covered in French subtitles to translate all of the Japanese interviewees. And for this release, they basically just blacked out the bottom bar of the screen and put English subtitles over it. So you do lose a little bit of information sometimes when they're showing clips as well, but it was what it was, and it was a really interesting insight into the series. And also, something I was really glad they touched on was why the series ended, the sixth one, at such an open-ended conclusion. Actually, open-ended conclusion, I'll leave that one in for free. At such an open-ended point without a conclusion is what I meant to say. Again, I'll leave that in. And the reason was, the writer of the manga, he sold the film rights to this Katsu production company, but then he sold the TV rights to someone else, and so they went off to make a TV version of Lone Wolf and Cub. And Wakayama was so attached to the role of Ogami Ito. In fact, he said that it was the role of his lifetime, and I certainly can see why. He was, I guess, offended when they cast someone else as Lone Wolf and Cub, and so he said, right, well, if they do it on TV, I'm not going to do the movies. Simple as that. To the point where the people making the TV show were like, well, okay, we'll fire the other guy and we'll cast you as Lone Wolf and Cub in the TV series. But apparently, you know, once Wakayama had his mind set on something, he was stubborn. He's like, no, I'm not doing it. I'm not doing any of the movies, any of the TV shows if you're going to do this thing. So he left it there, and that's all there was to it. So it's kind of a shame, because, you know, as much as towards the later entries in the series, you have this kind of, you know, it's just another adventure, more killings, another hit he has to, you know, carry out. I would love to just see like another 10, 15 films, and I'm very intrigued now to go and see the Zatoichi, or Zatu, I don't know how you pronounce it, the Zatoichi films that Criterion have released. It's a huge box set, very expensive, but I'd love to get it one day and see how it compares with a film that has like over, I think, 25 films in the series. Very intrigued to see how that stacks up next to this one. And whether I would have really enjoyed seeing more in this Lone Wolf and Cub series. But, you know, I think there's 6 really entertaining films, and I'm going to continue watching some of the special features now. First up is an interview, a newly recorded interview for Criterion Collection with Kazui Koike. I don't know if that's how you pronounce his name, but he is the writer of the original manga. So I'm going to watch that now. I believe it's about 15 minutes long, and I'll get back to you once I've watched it. Alright, I'm done with the interview with the creator of the original manga, the writer of Lone Wolf and Cub, recorded I think in 2015 for this release. Awesome, 11 minutes long, but a great interview with the man himself, who talks about, he gives you the broad strokes of everything in 10 minutes basically, how he came to create the story, how he teamed up with the artist, and how their collaboration worked, and how they were drinking sake, and that wasn't subtitled, but I could hear him say sake, but they were drinking together, and they said, let's make something really entertaining, and they came up with Lone Wolf and Cub, and you know, and where it went from there, and how it became so successful, and why he thinks it works. And it's a really good point. He says that if you have these heroes who keep going on in a series, in a serial, in a manga, in a film series, and the hero is really strong and always beats the enemy, it starts to get, you know, not very interesting. And to me, that is something I found in the film series, was that you know, Ogami Ito was kind of invincible. You know, he was infallible for a lot of the series. There were times where he would get his, and he would get, you know, knocked down a peg, or he'd get a slice down the back or whatever. But for the most part, you knew that even going into a situation where he was going to be facing off with hundreds of men, he was probably going to come out okay. So I wasn't sure why I didn't find it less interesting as it went on, and he says the key is you need to have a weakness to the hero. And he told the story of Siegfried, and they even used a still from one of my favourite silent films, Die Nibelungen, which is something I did not expect to see referenced in any of this set of supplements on the Blu-ray. But anyway, he said that Ogami Ito's weakness is his son, Daigoro. And what makes it even more interesting is that, unlike an ordinary parent, you know, when faced with enemies who say, "We'll kill your son," a normal parent would say, "Okay, you know, I give up." But Ogami Ito says, "Fine, kill him." And so you worry about what's going to happen to the son, and so that's what makes it interesting, and that's a great point, and I think that is really what makes it work, is this unique set of characters with the father and the son. Anyway, he talks about all sorts of things and has some really nice kind of stories that made me smile, and it was great to hear his thoughts on the series. He wasn't a big fan of the TV series. He also briefly talks about the ending of the manga, which does have a conclusive ending, and he talks about how he struggled with that with both the people who are making the TV show and the people who are publishing the manga. They both said to him that you don't have the right to end this the way that you want to, even though you're the creator. So he did it without their permission and just did it the way he wanted to, and they weren't very happy about it, but that was the way he wanted to end the story. I won't spoil what it is for anyone, but that was great. I can't see anything else topping that in terms of special features. To hear from the writer of the manga itself, the original source material, that's what I love about these releases and these Blu-rays, these DVDs with the special features they're able to put on them to kind of supplement the main feature. Gives you some you know, first-hand insight in this case, so that was great. I'm now going to watch another new 2016 recorded interview with Sensei Yoshimitsu Katsuse, the 15th headmaster of the Ryu martial arts system, and he documents and demonstrates the reality of samurai swordsmanship in contrast to its fictitious representation in the Lone Wolf and Cub series. Let's check it out. Alright, done with that one. Very, very sobering little interview there with this this master of the martial art that is, I guess, credited as the main thing that Ogami Ito uses in the Lone Wolf and Cub series. So we get like the real life kind of master of this martial art talking about it, and he goes over kind of his philosophy on what martial arts are, what they mean to him, the things that he does, his history, his past, and then finally he touches on briefly at the end there, it's about a 12-minute interview, he talks about how this style of the martial arts system, Ryu, is used in movies and whether they're accurate or not, and of course they're not really. But he does give the Lone Wolf and Cub series a little bit of credit for getting some of it right at least, but ultimately if people were to take away from the films that that is what the martial art is, then he would be very displeased with that, I suppose. And at the end there he kind of talks about how he feels about learning martial arts and how perhaps the best way to teach his son is to teach him nothing because he learned nothing from his father, and that he believes that you should learn it for yourself. And yeah, very interesting kind of philosophical way to end the interview, and it was an interesting one. He did a couple of demonstrations of things. Yeah, I really liked that. It was a really cool little, it was almost like a little mini film within itself really about this guy and his little history with martial arts. Now there's one piece on here called Sword of the Samurai, which is a silent 1939 documentary detailing the making of a traditional samurai sword. I've been really excited for this one, but I'm going to save it until I do my silent movie marathon 4, because it's a silent documentary. I'm really looking forward to it, and it doesn't, you know, obviously it's not directly linked to the Lone Wolf and Cub series, so I'm going to save that one. And we're going to end this, as far as the bonus features documentaries are concerned, with an interview, again filmed for the Criterion Collection in 2016, with Kenji Masumi biographer Kazuma Nozawa, discussing the work of the director of the 4 Lone Wolf and Cub films that he did. So I'm going to check that one out now and then come back to you with my thoughts. Okay, it was a very interesting interview with the biographer of director Kenji Masumi, Kazuma Nozawa. and he looks considerably older than he did in the French documentary from 2005. And I love that his interview was taking place at this kind of bar, not a literal bar like a club, but like I guess a bar in his like a breakfast bar, but it was filled with all of these bottles of liquor, most of them completely finished, and he gave some interesting insight into Kenji Masumi's life, you know, where he came from. He didn't want to be a filmmaker initially, he wanted to be a painter. He spent 4 years as a prisoner of war in Serbia, and the biographer likes to think that that probably informed the way he made films eventually, and how he got into filmmaking, and how he started as a caddy, basically, just carrying stuff around, and then he became an assistant director. And the style of not even the style, the what would you call it, the way that it all worked, the system, that's what I was looking for, the system of filmmaking in certain studios in Japan at the time, where, you know, it was literally like a rolling, like, you know, like a conveyor belt, basically, and directors would get assigned films whether they wanted to do them or not, basically. And perhaps this wasn't something that he wanted to do initially, but he was very happy with the films that he made in this series. Anyway, a very good interview, and the only thing left to watch is that silent documentary, which I'll watch at another time, and the big special feature on this disc, which is the 1980 American re-edit and redub called Shogun Assassin, which I'm going to watch a bit later on. I'm going to take a bit of a break now, but before that, this is turning into the biggest movie vlog ever. I apologize, but what the hell, I wanted to talk about it as I went, and I've enjoyed doing so. This is a fantastic set, and when I posted my Blu-ray update, someone commented saying, "Did you know that there's a hidden compartment in this set?" And I'm thinking, a hidden compartment? What are you talking about? And for the record, I haven't really shown the set in this video. It's a gorgeous release. It's absolutely stunning. I love the artwork on this digipack here, and you'll be able to see I have a Breaking Bad disc inside there, because that's what I was watching before on my region free player. But an absolutely stunning set in terms of the artwork, the booklet and everything. And yeah, I got this comment about this hidden compartment and this special secret poster, and I'm thinking, what the hell is this person talking about? And I was looking at other unboxings to see if they'd found it, and no one else had seen it. And there's loads of people commenting saying, "Have you seen the hidden compartment? You just pull the flap of the spine open." And I'm thinking, this has got to be some troll who wants people to kind of try and open up their box set and kind of ruin the you know, the cardboard. But as it turns out, there is actually a hidden compartment in the spine of this thing. Now, I don't really want to do it again, because, you know, I don't want to ruin any of the cardboard, but I'm going to do it now. I'm going to take it out. I haven't looked at it. I just opened to see that it was there. So let's try and very carefully open up this spine flap here. There we go. And there we go. Look at that. That's incredible, isn't it? It's such a weird thing to do. I told Connie about it, and she's like, "Why didn't they tell anyone? Maybe no one could have found it." Well, that's kind of the fun of it, isn't it? And I don't know how anyone would even begin to think, you know, like, should I open the spine and see what's inside? I don't know. So if we take this out, as you can see, this has like this special compartment for it there. And I might just, I don't know, I think I'll close this up and maybe just leave and kind of keep the thing outside of it, because I don't want to keep opening this thing. I've closed it up successfully. So let's take a look at this right here. This is very, very cool. Look, I love the idea of it. I really do. Criterion, they know what they're doing. It's a lot of fun when things like this happen. And it is the baby cart itself. It's like a dissection of the baby cart and all the various weapons that are included. Spring-loaded blast shield, wheels, axle nuts, right front gun door, single-edged swing-arm blade, brackets, axles, machine gun units, concealed short swords, handle assembly, rain and sun shield. It's baby cart exploded view. So that's really cool. I like that. I don't know what I'll do with this. Maybe now I've looked at it, I should just put it away. I should just put it back inside the spine. I don't know. What do you reckon? I guess you can't really answer me in real time, but it's a very cool addition that I might just put inside the booklet or something, and keep it stored there, perhaps. Folds up nicely again. And And yeah, I haven't really heard of anything like that before, where you've had a hidden well, actually, no, I do. There's the Harry Potter Wizards collection. It has a hidden compartment. Let's see if it'll fit inside the booklet without... no, it's a little bit oversized. It peeks at the top and bottom. I might just put it back in where I found it. I'm probably not going to take it out and display it, but it's cool that it was there, and the booklet itself is just stunning. I love all the imagery that they've included here, just all across the board. It's just a phenomenal release. I've read most of the booklet now as well. So later on I'm going to check out Shogun Assassin, and I will let you know my thoughts on it once I've seen it. Okay, I'm done with Shogun Assassin. I'm done with all of it now, I guess. So what is it? It's almost 6 o'clock, so I guess it took about a day and a quarter to watch everything on this Blu-ray, except for that silent documentary. But you know, that's not really linked directly to the films. Shogun Assassin. What did I think of it? Let's turn that down a bit. First of all, the music was really interesting in this film. At times, I love the music, even though it didn't really need to be there in some scenes, especially the ending. Some of it wasn't that good, and there's a bit there that sounded exactly like the Darth Vader Imperial March theme from Empire Strikes Back, and this American reimagining of the Lone Wolf and Cub films was made, or at least released, about 6 months after the release of The Empire Strikes Back, so I'd find it very hard to believe that whoever did the music hadn't lifted some of the bars from the Imperial March, because it sounded incredibly similar at times. But yeah, sometimes the new music wasn't very good. Sometimes I really liked it, and it went along with the excess of it. And you know, being an American dub, the cheesiness is kind of exacerbated and stuff. The part that I said, you know, way back near the beginning of this video, that I really loved in the second film, where the character is talking about how the blood that's spewing from their neck sounds like the whistling of a winter wind, was such a captivating moment in the original, and in this one it's kind of played, it just, I don't know, I mean, there was kind of a little bit of a joke on the button of the scene in the original film, but in Shogun Assassin it kind of just pushes it full circle into a joke, and the guy who's dying is like, but this is ridiculous. Like, went a bit too far. Interesting. It's an interesting film because it takes pretty much the entirety of the second film, Lone Wolf and Cub, Baby Cart at the River Styx, and the original film, Sword of Vengeance. They take about 15 minutes from that film, and they basically just take all of the flashbacks from the original film and place it into the framework of the story of the second film. Kind of a smart move, and I really did like what they did with it. They simplified a lot of the plot, cut out a lot of things. I mean, there were certain scenes that were trimmed. I could even tell in some of the gorier scenes that they'd taken frames out as well to probably get past some of the censors. I could tell some of the more gorier moments of the film were cut down. You know, a few frames were shaved off here and there. I could just tell because I'd watched it yesterday. So. And you have this constant voiceover narration from Daigoro, which I really liked actually, because it added a voice to this character that I've watched for 6 films now over the past 24 hours, and he has pretty much no lines of dialogue. All he really says is "daddy," you know. So it was kind of cool to kind of imagine what might be going on inside Daigoro's head and getting that narration throughout the film. So, you know, I can understand why people don't like this, but I can also understand why people love this. It's a cult classic, and introduced a lot of people to the original films, and certainly it doesn't come anywhere close to matching how good the original 2 first films were. You know, I wouldn't really put the 3rd, 4th, 5th, and 6th film up there as being great films, but I do think a case can be made for the first 2 films in the series to be called great films. And this basically takes all the best moments from those 2, so it has a lot of good material to be working with. The dubs itself, you know, the acting wasn't that good. I like the guy who did the voice of Ogami Ito, because he had the same kind of deep register to his voice, and the gruff kind of blunt way of speaking seemed to fit the character. Otherwise, fairly cheesy. And what more can I really say? I just find it interesting, just from an editing point of view, how they change things and how they kind of swap the ending around a bit. Because the final scene of the second film, they put like 20 minutes before the end, and I can see the logic as well. So it was quite kind of interesting to see that and how that played into it. Certain moments which were so good in the original kind of were changed through dialogue, which I thought was a bit of a shame. But then there were other parts where they stayed very true to the original version in terms of the dialogue, which I appreciated. So overall, it was enjoyable. I definitely watch it again. It's a fun kind of supplement to the main series, I think, and definitely showcases a lot of the best things about the series. But a lot of the plot is lost. You know, a lot of the which may be good, may be bad. You know, again, I did find it hard to keep up with all the clans and the names and stuff, and that kind of part of the plot of the original series. You know, in this one they just say he's the bad guy, and he's going off to kill the bad guy's brother, which is, that's not even who it is in the original film, but it simplifies things, and so I think it's a very direct, and then it kept in all the best scenes, like the scene I was talking about where Dagodo goes to the water to kind of scoop up the water to take to his dad, and it keeps slipping through his fingers. So you know, they kept that scene intact, and so they clearly recognised what the strengths of the films were, and used all the best bits. And I think that for the most part, it was a very good re-edit. But again, some of those moments where the sound would drop out completely in the original, they added in effects for it, and I thought, oh, it kind of diminishes the power of it a little bit. Anyway, that's it. I'm done. I'm finished. Final thoughts then now, I guess. Alright, so Lone Wolf and Cub, the entire series, all 6 films, including Shogun Assassin, watched. All the special features relating to the film, watched, except for the trailers. They have theatrical trailers for all 6 films, and I think I've seen enough Lone Wolf and Cub over the past day or two, so I'll probably watch those at some point in the future. But a phenomenal Blu-ray release. I would say this is probably in like maybe my I don't know, like top 20, top 25 favorite Blu-rays that I own now, because I loved all the special features. I loved the films. I really got out of this mostly what I was hoping for and expecting. The only gripes I can give the entire series is that a bit too much rape, and I think again an overarching plot that would have tied everything up and given the series a conclusion would have been great, but as I've already talked about, there was a reason why that didn't happen. So as it is, a great series I'll be coming back to time and time again, but I definitely think that the films I'll be going back to the most will be the first 2 and probably the 4th one. They were my favourites by far, and I don't know if I've ranked all 6 yet, but I think I would go 2, 1, 4, 3, 5, and then 6. There's a great kind of showdown at the end of the 5th film, but I mean there's great showdowns in all of them, but that's how I would rank them in terms of preference. And I don't know, maybe the first film might be the best of the bunch, but I think the first and the second one are the 2 strongest ones, and yeah, that's kind of the high mark of the entire series. Really did enjoy the 3rd one as well, but not quite as much, I think. And the first 2 really had something that the rest of the series didn't quite have as much. Had little flashes of it, but not quite as much, I think. So there we go. That's it. I got nothing more to say, believe it or not. And if you've watched this far, well done, you deserve a medal. I can't believe how much footage I've got for this. I thought it was going to be a short little thing, but it turned into something much more, and that's fine, I guess. It was great to get a Blu-ray and then watch everything on it straight away. You know, even if it is a 7-film collection, it can be done. You know, because just so many times you get a Blu-ray, you're excited about it, it goes on the shelf, you never watch it. You know. So at least I can say it was money well spent, and what a bargain as well to get that for $39.99. I'm glad that Amazon messed up the price on that one, and I'll gladly take advantage of it again if I have the opportunity to. So there we go. If you've seen any of these films, I've probably already said that by now, but leave your comments down below, let me know what you think about the films. And the Blu-ray set, if you have it, anything to do with them, I'd love to hear your thoughts, because I'm really into it now, and I'm definitely a fan of the series now and the franchise, and I do plan on seeking out the manga and reading all of it. I'm really excited about that, because I've done that before with the Miyazaki film, Now Secure of the Valley of the Wind. I went and bought the 1,000-page long manga, read all of it and loved it. So definitely another case of enjoying a Japanese film or films and then wanting to go back and read the original source material. So I'll definitely be seeking out the Lone Wolf and Cub manga series at some point in the future, and maybe I'll do a video on that as well. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at there. Leave it at there, leave it at that. I'll leave that one in for free as well. Thank you for watching, and hopefully I'll see you in the next one. This might put you off all future videos. It was that long. Goodbye.
I am called King Computer.
Alright. Oh, trying not to get you in shot in the background sleeping. Alright, so there we go. Lone Wolf and Cub, the entire series, including Shogun Assassin, be an outtake.